We're just joining things in progress here because we were talking about Buddy Rich and Josh from Buckcherry is here. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
welcome.
for having me.
Yeah, not so much. Do you know anything about Oshawa?
I don't.
You know,
I'm sorry.
did you know that Oshawa is kind of like the Detroit of Canada? It's the
really?
home of General Motors in Canada.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah. And
That's
I'm still trying to pull out that little story about Seinfeld and Buddy Rich and the famous Buddy Rich tapes from the bus where he was reaming out one of the guys.
Yeah.
For,
Do you happen to recall what the name of that episode is? I'd like to check it out.
I'm just trying to think. There was a catchphrase in the episode, and is there something that Rich was saying during the interrogation that day?
I don't know. I haven't heard that recording for a long time, but it's pretty funny.
We're going to have to take a look at it. When we're done with this, we'll do a little
I'll
search
get on
and we'll
like
find
YouTube
it.
and try to find it.
How's things going?
Everything's going great. You know, we just dropped our 8th record, Warpaint. It's a great record.
Yeah.
One of our best, I believe, and we've been out since January.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been doing it. We're coming up on like 100 shows since January, so we're all in it. You know, we're deep in it, and it's a fine oiled machine at this point in time. You know, as far as we're really tight as a band, and that's great. And 20 years for us. You know, our first record was in 1999, so it's a pretty special occasion.
How long does it take to kind of get the band in shape? I mean, there's one thing to get the band tight in rehearsals, but then playing in front of a live audience is a completely different story.
Yeah, rehearsing and live is two different animals, you know. We've all been doing it a long time. All these guys are very seasoned, and it's really the best musicians we've ever had in a band, you know. And the funny thing is we've all known each other from way back in the day. We are all in other bands. We all had met up in Hollywood way back in the day. I moved there when I was 19, and that's when I met Stevie, and Stevie and I were roommates, and we worked together when we were starving musicians. And Stevie's been in the band, of course, since 2005, but and at that time when Stevie and I were roommates, Kevin Rankin is a great singer as well. He was in a band called Soul. He sang and played guitar, and we used to go see those shows. And Kelly was in this band called Electric Love Hogs, and Francis was kicking around too in a bunch of bands. And we had no idea that we'd all be in a band together, you know, later on. Cut to, you know, 2016, I think, when they all got in. Well, Kelly's been in it for 7 years.
How old were you when you lived in Hollywood?
I moved there when I was 19.
19.
Yeah.
And so that would have been 1989.
But it wasn't a far move. It was like 50 minutes.
Yeah, because you're a Los Angeles guy.
Yeah,
like Anaheim
I grew up in
Hills.
Orange County, California.
Okay,
But I was born in L.A., moved out of there when I was 3. My parents split up and moved to Orange County.
Yeah. You're looking well. Do you have... I mean, touring is it's a hard grind.
48,
you know?
man.
And obviously you're good at that, at touring, at keeping yourself rested, keeping yourself healthy.
Got to. There's just be no way to do this. This is a very physically demanding gig.
How long did it take you to learn that?
What's that?
How long did it take you to learn how to manage yourself on the road?
You know... Thank God I went through a lot of stuff before Buckcherry was born. I was in a band for 5 years in LA before Buckcherry got started, and I was a complete mess. And if it would have had any success, there was a couple moments when it was going to have success, and it just didn't. It all imploded, and thank God, because I probably would be dead by now, you know? But I got cleaned up. I cleaned up my act a couple years before I actually got on the road with Buckcherry. So I have a very good regimen, you know. I'm really passionate about my craft, and I always like to remain teachable. So I'm always learning new ways and new things to stay on top of it, you know, so that it makes my life easier on stage, you know. And that's all the stuff, you know, off stage that you got to do with, you know, being a singer is it's very boring stuff because you got to be really disciplined on what you eat, what you drink. You got to get a lot of sleep, you know what I mean?
Can you imagine talking to yourself this way in 1989?
No. I didn't think I would make it to 30, you know, so...
So was that something
honestly,
that
you know...
Interesting. So, I don't know, how do I phrase this? You didn't think you were going to make it to 30. The Who said, I hope I die before I get old. You didn't mean it, did you? I mean, you know where I'm going with this?
You know, I started getting loaded at 13, so I could, you know, I have a really bad problem when I pick up, you know, I just can't stop, you know, and I was a bad alcoholic and drug addict. And thank God, you know, certain things happened in my life that got me to get clean, you know, like my first daughter was born. And then shortly after that, I got arrested with a DUI when I was 23. And that introduced me to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got sober, and that's when my life changed. Everything shifted. And I was just like, maybe I could do this. I didn't know anybody lived sober, so I didn't know it was even possible, you know? So I started doing it, and then I didn't want to be anything but sober.
Yeah, yeah. But at that time, I mean, it was the way you had to live. You had kind of a lifestyle that you had to project, or at least that lifestyle was supposed to come out in the grooves and in the music.
I think, you know, it saved me at that time. I was going through a lot as a kid. You know, there's a lot of dysfunction at home, and the drugs and alcohol were good served a purpose at that time. But looking back, I wish I would have never even dabbled in it, you know, honestly, because I just think it stunts your growth, you know?
Yeah, especially at the formative years. If you're 13 years old and you're getting high, you know, it's not a real good thing. But
I mean,
you know what?
You would not have recognized me at the end of my drinking. I was 23 and I was passing out twice a day.
Oh my.
I was super skinny, a lot of drugs, and I was just a mess.
But you wouldn't be where you were had you not gone through that experience. Oh my. Yeah. But you wouldn't be where you are now if not for that experience. It's helped shape you into the person you are.
Yeah, for sure. You know, music has always been that one thing that's always brought me joy. You know, to this day, I still enjoy it.
And you know, life is not supposed to be a vase of roses all the time. In order to learn and to be able to grow, you have to go through hardship. And sometimes you bring that along yourself. But that's, you know, everybody's journey, right?
Yes, we all got peaks and valleys, and that's how you learn and grow, for sure.
You must miss the family when you're on the road.
I miss them desperately right now. I miss them a lot. Try not to think about it. I got about 6 more weeks of hard touring until I get to really be home and decompress, and then all my kids will be back in school, and you know, so they won't. Right now is when they have a lot of time, you know, which would be nice, but it is what it is. You know, summer is the time to tour. But
they know that Daddy's home, and you can go pick them up. And that's no problem.
Yeah. And we do a lot of FaceTime, and you know, technology is really great. I mean, I can only imagine the bands that didn't have this back in the day. It would just be a drag, you know.
And it helps with your marriage as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
for sure.
Keeps things kind of under control.
Yes.
She can always tell.
Yep. She can always tell.
It's terrific. The climate nowadays, especially for live performance, is a lot different in that a lot of the new groups that I hear sound great on record, but when I see them, they're not really honed.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what's a tragic thing that's happening to rock music. It, you know, because of technology, a lot of pre-recorded tracks and vocals have been brought into big rock shows now. So they're becoming like pop shows. And when you have pre-recorded tracks and things, you're basically playing on a grid, and there's no spontaneity. And I feel like it's creating this thing where there's like no more rock stars anymore. There's no like, if you think about it, like the rock stars, the decade of the rock stars ended in the 1990s because you know, we had all these amazing rock and roll frontmen, Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder and Kurt Cobain and Lane Staley and, you know, Jonathan Davis and Zach De La Roca, you know, all these guys. And then 2000s, nothing. I mean, there's great, you know, there's bands that are out there and they're doing it, but they're not like, rock is off the grid, you know? Yeah. And I don't think that a majority of the concert goers know how much is pre-recorded coming out of the PA speakers, you know? And I don't want to name names, but we've been out with major acts, and I'd be standing at front of house and I'd be watching the singer, and I'm like, man, like I can't even hear this guy take a breath. And then I look back at my tour manager and he goes, oh, for these songs, he's not singing the lead vocal. I go, what? And he goes, yeah, it's just, and then you go onto the stage and there's some dude on a computer just working on Pro Tools, sending all the stuff into their ears, so that they can just lip sync it, you know? And I'm just like blown away by what is going on, you know? And I never would have thought that was going to be the new rock, you know?
All production and not performance anymore.
Yeah, just
in some cases.
Yeah, like if you want to be at that top level, that you got to just have all this pre-recorded stuff going on. And Buckcherry, of course, has never been that, you know, and we're still not that to this day. And I think that's part of our charm. And we got like, you know, we got so many great fans and such a great fan base of people that come to multiple shows, and I'm super grateful.
I want to talk about the 20th anniversary of Live Aid. Let's see.
Yeah.
So Live Aid was 1985. So it would have been 2005. You were about 80 miles north of here.
Yeah.
At Molson Park in Barrie. And there were a lot of great acts on that show. By the way, I'll bet you never thought that you'd play on a bill with Gordon Lightfoot.
You know, I wasn't going to play on that show, though.
Oh, okay.
Steven Tyler got sick. And,
I did not know that.
Or something happened and he couldn't do the show. I don't know if it was actually he got sick or what, but so they called me and they said, "Hey, do you want to do like Walk This Way?" And, you know, with
Run DMC.
With DMC. And I was like, heck yeah, let's go, you know? And we flew on a private jet. With Elliot Easton from The Car sitting next to me.
That's right. I forgot Elliot was there.
One of the dudes from CSI, the big actor at that time, that something happened to him after he got hooked on heroin or something like it. But I forget his name, but he was in the plane with us, and we went and did it. You know, we met up with Tom Hamilton and Joey Kramer, and we went and did a couple songs. And the cool thing about that whole day was we did our show, and then we're hanging out backstage, and the I don't know who it was, like the promoter came back and said, "Hey, if you want to come up and sing Rockin' in the Free World with Neil Young, you know, he's inviting all the singers up if you want to come." And I go, "Yes." And so I started, I didn't know the lyrics or anything. So I pulled it up on the internet, and I'm like trying to memorize the lyrics. I had like 10 minutes, you know, and I go up there and everybody's like standing like 10 feet behind him while he's singing. And I'm looking around and I'm like, is anybody going to sing with them? You know? So I just walked up to the mic and I started singing Rockin' in the Free World with him. And I didn't know how blue this guy's, Neil Young's eyes were, but he's got like these crystal blue eyes. And I like, at one point I was like, bam, and I hit him in the eyes and we're like singing on the mic. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. You know, I was like having a moment, you know, and it was amazing. And he was a really, really good guy. And then the next day we were on the cover of the Sun, the Toronto Sun.
Yeah. That's cool. You remember that. But for the people that don't remember that exact setup for that day, and you've already talked about it, but two guys from Aerosmith, was Joey there as well? I remember Brad.
I thought Joey
Whitford.
Kramer was. Oh no! You know
Tom
what?
Hamilton
It was
Whitford,
Xavier, our drummer, was playing drums. Yes, you're right.
Right.
And Tom Hamilton on bass.
Yeah, and the guys from Run DMC.
And Elliot Easton on the guitar.
Right. And the cool thing about it was
That's
you could
right,
tell
you're right.
that.
I'm sorry. I was like,
no, that's quite all right.
Yeah.
That's quite all right. But the really cool thing about I didn't even remember, even though it was the moment of that event for me, just watching it on television.
Yeah.
But the fact that you could tell it was pretty loose.
Yeah.
But it was real rock and roll in that you just plugged in and let it rip. And you know, if there were mistakes, who cares? Just let it go.
Yeah. Well, we literally rehearsed one time, like at sound check that day. You know, so a crazy thing happened coming home from that. We're flying at 30,000 feet on this little private jet, and the cockpit's open. You can see the pilots. That's how small it is, right? And I'm sitting next to Elliot, and we're having a good time. He's on his computer, and everything's happening, and we're like mid-flight, right? And all of a sudden, I smell an electrical burn. I smell it. It wafts up into my nose, and I was like, literally almost fainted. And I was like, Elliot, and he goes, what? I go, can you smell that? And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, it smells like an electrical burn. And he looks at me and he's like, I can smell it. And I go, oh my God. And I run up to the pilots and I go, I don't know is anything going on these dials, because we smell an electrical burn in the back here. And they're like freaking out and they're looking at the dials, and I'm thinking, we're going to die. You know, this is it. So this plane's going to burn up, or something's going to, there's going to be a fire here or something. And then, nothing happened, and it just kind of went away, and there was nothing on the dials, and we made it home, and it was just really scary. You know?
So the pilots just did they
They
notice
were
it too?
They
just
were in
checked all
high
of it?
alert.
Yeah.
They kept looking at the dials,
Yeah.
and it didn't get any worse than it was. And then finally, it started dissipating, and you couldn't smell anymore. But it was weird,
And
you
nobody
know?
knew what it
Freaked
was
me out,
at
and
the
I
end.
never wanted to be on a small plane after that.
Those problems happen on big planes too.
Yeah, I know, I know, but you know, I feel more secure.
So apart from playing at Live 8 and playing with Neil, what's the most memorable gig you've ever had? The best the band has ever played.
There are so many. I've had such
Yeah.
a blessed career, you know. Got to play with all of our heroes, you know. Woodstock 99 was a big one.
That was a bit of a shit show though, right?
It was crazy, but you know, I got to meet James Brown before, you know, and that was like incredible for me. And so I got to meet James Brown and played in front of a lot of people. And then, you know, we got to do like 4 shows with AC/DC on the Time Bomb tour. And that was a rock and roll fantasy come true.
Any camaraderie on that tour?
We got to meet all of them after the last show, all of them in a dressing room, and they were the nicest guys. They were so humble and sweet. I sat right next to Angus and just talked to him. Like, you know, we were just hanging out. We were drinking tea, and his wife was making us tea, and we were talking. And then Malcolm was on the other couch, and Brian Johnson was walking around telling jokes, and they had no problems with us, like, you know, taking pictures or doing whatever we wanted. They were totally sweet, and it was amazing.
Brian Johnson is a really, really talented guy. I don't know if you ever saw... Oh, it's funny. I just stumbled across it on one of the specialty channels a couple of months ago, and it was actually an older show, 5 or 6 years old. But it was a show about classic cars.
Yeah,
and
he loves them.
Really, really knowledgeable, and just a great host, a real natural.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah. I guess all those years on stage just prepared him for everything.
I think they were always like that, you know, and you know, that's the cool part when you meet your heroes and they're just cool, you know, because that doesn't always happen.
Well, you think about where they came from, how young they were, and how hard they had to work. So having a certain amount of, I'll make up the word, humility is part of what takes them there.
They kept it real. I mean, they're, in my opinion, the best rock and roll band ever lived, you know. So
pretty good. They don't get much better, do they? No. You toured across Canada with Kiss, what, in 2010?
Yeah, we did a couple tours with Kiss. That was the second one, but our first one was on our first record in Europe.
Yeah.
We had the same manager, and we got the opening slot for the Kiss tour in Europe, and we had never been to Europe at that time. We had never been on an arena stage, so it was crazy for us. It was pretty amazing, and yeah.
So they're doing a final again. So the end of the road tour, I guess it is, and they're over in Europe right now, and they're actually coming back here to do it again in August.
I heard that, yeah.
Do you ever think about at which time do you hang it up? Do you ever think about that?
I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think?
Wow, there's a lot of variables to that conversation. Yeah, you know, there's money, there's passion, there's all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I don't know. You know, that's a tough one, and I don't want to like. I'd have to really like hunker down and have a real heart to heart with you on that one. You know, okay. But yeah, you know, I've learned a lot over the years about myself and done a lot of reflection and internal work lately, and I'm good if it stops now or if it keeps going for 10 more years. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm just going to take it one day at a time.
The kids just might say, Daddy, stay home.
They want me home, and then I go, okay, but this lifestyle will change dramatically. Are you guys okay with that? And then they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, then I got to be on the road. Yeah.
Really great to see you. Really nice
thanks
conversation.
for having me. Yeah.
We'll see you around, okay?
We're going to have a fun time tonight.
Josh, Buckcherry, let's do it.
Cheers.